Hello and welcome back to Gapeys garden. Today we're going to be doing a fall tour of the garden. A lot of the summer crops have been removed, the tomatoes are all done, cucumbers are done, and we've started taking out some of the squashes, and the chickens have been roaming around the gardens, which they are really enjoying, so you might see some of those guys in the video. So let's get started. So here is the corn bed, and we've been getting a lot of wind the last couple of weeks. So we've got some stalks that did get bent over, and I'm not sure if they're still going to dry or not. They're still not quite ready to pick, so I'm just going to leave them on there a little bit longer. This is all dent corn, which is a drying corn, so normally you don't want to pick those until they're pretty much completely dried. So I'm going to see how they do maybe in another week or so, and hopefully we don't get too much more rain. But I did harvest quite a few already, but this Peruvian corn on the front row here is just taking a little bit longer than the other varieties. We do still have some peppers in the ground, and I've got this mini greenhouse over my pepper crosses, the lemon drop and gochu crosses, and that's just protecting them from the rain and probably getting it a little bit warmer in there so more pods can ripen up. But most of the other stuff has been taken out of this bed. We've still got some zucchini here, but it's pretty much done. The chickens have been kind of digging around in here, and I did remove a lot of it. It was starting to get the powdery mildew, but I did leave some of it in the ground and seeing if we can get a few more ripe zucchinis. And here are the chickens, a couple of them. So in the other end of the bed, I've got this little fence around there, and the chickens could easily jump over that if they tried, but so far they've been staying out of this area. So I've been keeping an eye on them to make sure they don't go in here because they could cause a lot of damage. But I've got a lot of different things in here. We've got some mustard here. This is Swiss chard, and I've been having a problem with, actually this is a beet. They look a lot alike, but I've been having a problem with leaf miners on a lot of my Swiss chard and beets. So I'm not sure. I'm hoping once it gets colder, those will probably die off, and hopefully they'll perk back up again. But there's a lot of damage on the leaves due to those guys. This is a purple mizuna, which is a really good, it does pretty well in both summer and winter. And then we've got some, this is a pink buckwheat, and I got those from Baker Creek. It's a really pretty cover crop. And then I've got some more cover crop in here. This is just some clover in there, and that's a red mustard, more beets back there. And I'm not sure what this red leaf guy is. It's either a beet or a Swiss chard, I'm not really sure, but I don't recall ever seeing one quite that red before. We've also got some purple pak choi down here, and I think we have some green pak choi hidden in here somewhere too. I've also got some beets or some radishes planted in various spots. So this is kind of an unorganized bed, just kind of tossed different things in here. So that is that side, and we've still got a Cosmo growing in the corner, but it's pretty much done, so I'll probably be pulling that out here pretty soon. And this bed is where the tomatoes were, so those are all pulled out, and this is probably the chicken's favorite bed because I had this all covered with a weed cloth when the tomatoes were growing in here, so when I took that weed cloth off, there's probably lots of goodies underneath for them to forage in. And we've also got the kale that's still in here. So I've got, I think, 4 kale plants, and they've been munching on those, especially the lower leaves. You can see all that, but we've got some taller ones over there, and they can't quite reach the top of those, so we're still actually harvesting off of those tall ones. So we've got another one here. This is the purple scarlet kale, but it gets a really dark purple color when the weather cools. And surprisingly, we still have a zinnia over there, though it has fallen over, but it's still got some flowers on it, which is kind of surprising. And yes, we still have a bunny problem. You can see the little bunny back there hiding, but he comes out usually later in the afternoon about this time. And I've got fencing around all the important stuff. So it's not only to keep the chickens out, but also to keep the rabbit out, especially the carrots, because he loves carrots. So we've still got some carrots. These were planted probably back in early summer, and they're just taking forever to grow. Well, we got carrots there, and then we've got some radishes and more carrots in this little fencing area. And the pole beans, I pulled out one of the TPs already because it was done. And this one is taking a little bit longer. It had a different variety in it, but all the rain we've had has just caused a lot of damage to the pods. You can see, so I'm not sure if we'll get much of a harvest of this variety, unfortunately. And then we've got, this is a Romanesco, and I've got a couple more of these in another bed, but this was planted in the spring and it still has not produced any kind of head. And this is the first time I've tried growing it, but I haven't had much luck with cauliflower either. So I'm probably going to stay away from even bothering with those because they just don't seem to grow very well. And the carrots that I have in this area, I don't know if you can see, but there's some holes in the ground. So I think some voles or moles or something are getting in there, and I think they've actually stolen a few of the carrots because I think there was more carrots. Let me go up here. I think there were more carrots in here than there is now. I think there's only 3 carrots left, but I'm pretty sure there were more than that. So the cucumbers are done. I still have the trellis up, but I need to take that down. And then we've got our chives, which are still looking pretty decent. And in this corner we have some out of control herbs. We've got a couple of sages. This one needs a trim pretty badly. And then we've got another sage back there. It's kind of more of it's a different variety. It's like a pineapple sage, I think. It kind of has some variegated leaves. And then we've got some lovage here, which grew. I think I'm going to move the lovage somewhere else because it got really, really huge this year. And then we've got some valerian in there, and then some golden oregano. And normally, if it's sunny, the leaves of that golden oregano will be really bright yellow. But since it's been so cool and cloudy and rainy, it has reverted back to a green color. And here's a closer look at that pineapple sage. Really pretty. And then this big tall thing here is a volunteer sunchoke, which I'm not sure how it got back here, but the wind has been causing some problems with that and getting it knocked over. There was one that was completely down on the ground that pretty much broke off at the ground, so I took that out already, and actually I just put it, that's what this over here is. That's what broke off in the herb bed, but maybe we'll get a good sunchoke harvest this year. And over in the very back corner of the garden, we've got a lot of volunteer strawberries that have really spread quite a bit this summer, but we have a lot of butternut squashes and delicatas that are over here. I've harvested a ton, but these didn't look like they were quite ready, so I just left them out here. I'm not sure if they're gonna mature or not. We also have our Latarula fig tree back here, which will hopefully produce some fruit next year. And then this last bed we have completely surrounded by some netting to keep both the chickens and the bunnies out. And I've still got some peppers in here that aren't quite done yet. The orange spice jalapeno is putting out quite a bit of pods that just are almost ripe. So I left a few of these in. A few of these peppers only have a couple pods set, so I'll be taking those out. And then we have our ground cherry back here, which I'm not sure. I think it's probably done. I don't think it's warm enough for it to really produce anymore. And then I've also thrown some fall crops in this bed as well. So we've got some pak choi here. And I am having some problem with the cabbage worms on a lot of the brassicas in this bed. So I've been trying to go through and pick those out when I see them and feed those to the chickens. So here's where I've got the other Romanescos. I've actually got 3 Romanescos in here, and they've got super tall, but they're just not producing any heads or anything. So that was kind of a fail this year. And then on this half of the bed, I've got some more brassicas and also some radishes. Oh, and I want to show you some pretty neat radishes that I'm growing this year. Let me get into the bed for a closer look. So this is a Japanese green radish called shawo fruit, and it grows kind of mostly up out of the ground, but it is a radish, and it's actually a pretty neat radish. I did harvest one last week and it's pretty tasty. And then this other one here, it has a similar shape. It's a cylindrical radish, and this one is called Pusa gulabi, and I think that one's from India, but it looks very similar and kind of tastes similar to the shawo fruit, but they are supposed to taste better after a frost, so I'm kind of holding out picking any more until we get a frost, which shouldn't be too much longer, maybe in another couple weeks. But here you can see all the damage that we're getting from, I'm pretty sure these are the leaf miners that are causing all this damage. But it looks like maybe the newer leaves that are coming out don't have any damage, so hopefully those guys are on their way out. And then we've got, let's see, we have a white kohlrabi here, which looks like it might be ready to pick actually. We've got one here, and these got really eaten up by the cabbage worms too, and I picked off a ton of those the other day, so hopefully they'll start doing a little better. But I think I'm gonna harvest this guy this weekend. And what else do we have? I think that's a volunteer, either a dill or a fennel. It's probably fennel. But we've got, yeah, lots of radishes and a couple of beets in here as well. And we have some kale in here too. They're not doing very good. They got kind of shaded by the Romanesco here. But that's pretty much it for the garden. We've also got some fall crops in the greenhouse. I'll go ahead and show you those too. So the greenhouse is kind of a jungle right now because I've got all the figs in here to keep them out of the rain, as well as some of the container peppers. So it's getting a little crowded in here, but I'll show you what we have here for fall crops. So here we've got some kale. I've got, I think, 3 or 4 different varieties of kale planted here. We've got some pak choi, and then again we're having some problem over there with the cabbage worms. So I picked a bunch of cabbage worms off of that guy a couple days ago, so hopefully, oh, here's one. This one found my kale, and they're really hard to see because they're practically the same color as the leaves. So let's pick this guy and see if we can find a chicken who wants it. Who wants a worm? I bet Nina wants it. Yep, she gobbled it right up. Is that good? All right, back to the tour. So yeah, those guys are hard to find, so they can do a lot of damage really fast. So I have to come in here and check, and they usually like to, as you saw, they like to kind of go on the spine of the leaves. And let's turn around over here. So we've got some more kale here. We've got three kales, and this is an unheated greenhouse, so they do pretty well in the winter without any heat because they don't get any frost or snow dumped on them. And then just kind of wherever, well, it looks like this guy needs some water. I just planted this Mizuna in here the other day, but the soil is kind of dry here, so I'm going to get that watered. You can see the leaves are kind of droopy, which tells you that it needs water. And then we've got some purple pak choi here, and got another kale hiding back there. So I just kind of planted stuff kind of in between the peppers because I'm not quite ready to take the peppers out of here. We've got another, I think this is a Swiss chard here, and we do have some leaks in the greenhouse from the vents, so I have this thing here to catch any water so it doesn't get too wet down here. And here's another Mizuna. I've also got some lettuce, so there's one lettuce back there, and behind me I planted, there's 4 lettuces back here, and I think this is the outrageous romaine lettuce, which is supposed to do pretty good in the winter time, and then some more Mizuna plants back here. So all these should do really well in the greenhouse over this winter, and hopefully we'll have a lot of greens to harvest. So that's it. Oh, here's a few more mustards back here. Look at this skeleton leaf. more cabbage worm damage. But we've got more mustard back here. This is the red mustard, and it does get more red the cooler it gets. So that is all we have in the greenhouse and outside for this fall. I've also got a couple trays of starts here on the deck that I need to put in the ground. I don't really have any room for them right now, but I'm waiting for the peppers to be done and then I can get these in the ground. But we've got some mustard, some lettuce, some more kale, Swiss chard, and then we've got some spinach back there too. So that's the garden in the middle of October. We aren't going to see too many more warmer temperatures, so more stuff is going to get pulled here before too long. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. You can also find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.